And welcome to the Midday Show. I am Jeff Everett. He is Mark Messina. There is no rundown today in the middle of the screen because it would probably just say the Queen has passed, the Queen has passed, the Queen has passed. Every news agency across the country, that's all they're talking about. You and I discussed it. I don't really get it personally. There are some topics off of it that, like, her age, what it means to be that old, to rule for that long. I think there's some neat questions there, but nobody wants to talk about those questions. Everyone's just kind of talking about the passing and the monarchy, and I don't know. So
it is a very. I remember I have a friend who's a sports media broadcaster in Baltimore, and when for those people in Baltimore, when the Colts left.
Yes.
And went to Indianapolis, which you obviously don't care because you're an Indianapolis fan, so they would hate you.
Yes, they would.
But the Colts left, and it was I think they left in '82, and they didn't get NFL football back for 14 years. Whatever. It was a long, bitter, and they hated the guy. His name was Jim Irsay. Okay. Now, Jimmy Irsay, his kid, runs the team because Jim died a while ago. But Jim, there's a famous interview with him. He was clearly drunk.
Okay.
And he's quoted as saying, "I'm not going to move the gosh darn team," except he didn't say gosh darn.
Yes.
And they rolled out in the middle of the night in Baltimore, Lord, and you can Google this, in the Mayflower trucks.
Yeah.
They rolled out in the middle of the night. So he was public enemy number one in Baltimore for a long time.
Right.
He also traded John Elway to Denver. They drafted John Elway and traded him. Again, in local lore, whether this is true or not, they traded him for like a tackle named Chris Hinton or something when you look it up. Okay. And they claim that he was drunk when he did that too. And like the general manager didn't do it, that the owner just got drunk and traded.
Right.
So be that as it may, this guy was not well liked. Well, then he passes away.
Okay. I was trying to see how you were going to connect this. And now
so he passes away and people are like, all these nice things. And this guy's a broadcaster. Like, no, I hate him. I still hate him. I'm glad he's dead. And people are like, how can you say that? He goes, I hated him yesterday when he was alive because of what he did. Yeah. Now that he's dead, it doesn't change what he did. And when you read through this, and I know there's a regalness, and she's ruled for all these years, and I get what the whole monarchy does. They've made 700 movies about it.
Right.
But there is a professor from Carnegie Mellon who's from Nigeria, I want to say. It was either Kenya or Nigeria, but it was one of those. And she made a statement about, is it on there? Do you have it? Okay. No, she has a statement about, I heard she's dying. I hope she suffers. I'm paraphrasing.
Yeah.
And then people, even all the way up to Jeff Bezos, ripped her for being heartless. And Twitter took it down, and Carnegie Mellon made a statement. And she's like, if you saw what they did to the people of my country and, forcing people into colonization, she's like, they murdered and displaced and, and this is what and she ruled over this. Yeah. And so there is that aspect of, okay, yeah, she did rule for a long time and all the things that happened under her rule were not pretty. Now, the other thing is, as we discussed, and Jerry and I were discussing yesterday, I'm not even sure how the British government works because they have parliament. Yeah. They have elected officials. They have a prime minister. Like, isn't the queen and or king more symbolic? Like, didn't Margaret Thatcher have way more power didn't Winston Churchill have way more power than the royalty? So I don't know.
So there is a comedic skit where the guy basically says, like, having the queen on their money is like us putting the Kardashians on our money. Basically saying, like, the weight of the monarchy at this point is to your, like, you were kind of hinting at this, like, there's a full government, a full parliament. Like, what does it mean? Just to double back, I said the same thing when Kobe passed away. Like, I always thought Kobe was kind of a jerk when he was alive. Obviously, I don't want anyone to die in a helicopter crash, but, like, I still kind of thought Kobe was that, it didn't erase how I felt about Kobe. I felt bad for a while, but, like, so same thing here. I understand there's a complication to living too long that I just think the longevity of life is not talked about enough. And there is this idea of when you rule over something for 70 years, how much of what happened before stays with you 70 years later. And how much are people going to remember about 1950 in 2022?
Well,
I think that's what we're finding out.
I get your point,
Yeah.
but there is the other side of it. If you were revolutionary, if you were the one who like Branch Rickey in Major League Baseball lore, thanks to the movie 42, will be seen as the white guy who's like, I'm going to put a black guy on the field. And so, yes, if for the people who are bold enough and brave enough to look at the times and say, this isn't right, and I'm going to do something about it, history will applaud you forever. So it is like, I can understand. And there were people who, if you read through some of the tweets, and she put a follow-up tweet that are like, people expect me to apologize. Blah, 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 blah. I'm,
you're referring to the professor.
The professor. Yes.
comment.
Yeah. The queen didn't put up a tweet. The professor, if people expect me to apologize, I'm basically not, because of all of the stuff that this person, and not that she did, but did under her rule. So that is it. You would be naive to think that everyone is in love with the queen. And there are people who, depending on, the British, all these expanding, warring countries who try to, and when there's an old cliche, the sun never sets on the British Empire, because it was all vast around the world. And as some of these countries, colonies were like, we're ready to be independent, it wasn't always received with open arms. And when that happened under her rule, you can understand why those people still hate her.
Do you think there is I think for some people, there's a sentiment that when someone passes away, it's not so much that there's like a brief time where things are taboo to say. Do you kind of like prescribe to that?
No, I do get what you mean. I just, here's
what I would say. I don't think anybody has said anything, and I shouldn't say this because obviously there are crazy people out there tweeting and saying things.
Correct.
However, the majority
none of those people watch us.
The majority of people, like in the media or like a college professor that is tweeting, blue check marks. Let's just call them blue check marks. People that are like established on social media or within the media.
Right.
I have yet to hear somebody say something that is either non-factual or incorrect. It's just their opinion of how they feel about those factual things. And so I don't think it's as taboo as people are making it out to be to say some of this stuff about the queen. If people were coming out and saying like she was an old hag and like if they were like demeaning her without a factual purpose or nothing behind it, I'd be like, well, they're just miserable and they're just being jerks. But most of what people are saying is they're actually using the anarch of history, right, and they're just defining why they don't like the queen. I don't know. Like, I get that there's a politeness when someone passes away. I get that there is a sentiment of like, are you going out of your way to say something bad about her? But when your job is to report on it, or your job is to have an opinion on something, and you don't like her or you disagree with what has happened in the past, I just don't think it's as bad as maybe people are making it out to be.
I totally agree with you.
Do you think it's hurting them also that she's a woman? Do you think that's also making it harder for some of these people to critique her?
Absolutely. And because she's ruled for so long, and I think in a lot of ways she did good things. Like she wasn't
No, one of my favorite things, I don't know if you know this or not, one of my favorite things she ever did, she played the Star Spangled Banner after 9/11. And it was the first time ever. I forget what the exact event was. I don't know if it was just like an every morning thing, but essentially it was like over 500-year tradition of like always playing whatever the British, whatever that is.
It's probably God Save the Queen.
And instead she played the Star Spangled Banner after 9/11. And so like she has done some things that like, I'm not sitting here like trashing her,
right.
But what I'm saying is like the people who kind of are trashing her, I don't know if it's not fair. Because I think for some people, it's like, gosh, she just passed away. Like, can you wait a minute also? But like, I don't know. I think it's fair to have an opinion. I think it's fair to judge somebody that's in a higher position, a higher ranking position.
No, I totally agree.
Yeah.
And you're right. Even in stupid, simple things, when you're like I don't think Ty Detmer should have won the Heisman Trophy the year he won the Heisman Trophy.
Sure.
The day after Ty Detmer dies, I still don't think Ty Detmer should have won the Heisman Trophy. It doesn't mean I'm going out of my way to, spit on his grave or anything. It's just, it is. I think there's also an aspect of we're at a point because of social media and because of there's more social awareness, and there is it's just like, okay. People don't like to talk about the ugly things of the world.
Sure.
And I'll give a perfect example. When we came in today and we're like, what do you want to talk about? And there's a lot of issues going on at Williamsport High School. And I said, this is Friday. Let's have fun. We got a lot of good. We'll talk about that next week. It isn't going anywhere.
Sure.
Because I just don't want to talk about it because it's ugly and
tough.
It's not a pleasant subject.
Oh, we could come on here and talk. We could have negative shows for an hour straight easily if we just followed the headlines.
Yeah.
Easily.
So I can understand why in this moment people are like, oh my gosh, she lived this long and she was the longest leading monarch and all this history and all these things with it. And then to be like, hey, well, she did rule over some bad things. And people just don't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
It's like the what's the whole class that we did the whole thing that they want to teach in school? It's a law school class and
critical race
theory. That the generation of white people now are like, I don't want to be reminded of the things that happened in the past. And because a lot of them were really bad and a lot of them were really unfair and now they're illegal. And it's so I get that, but it doesn't mean all the stuff didn't happen. So that's what we're dealing with the Queen.
And this will be my last jerk thing to say about this.
Thank you for prefacing this to say about this.
Yes, about this, because I'm sure I will be a jerk about other things. I've never understood the fascination or the rewarding of longevity. So I have a cousin who's taller than all of us. He's 6'7", and we'll make fun of him that he acts as if this is an accomplishment. He will talk about being tall as if this is something he has achieved. Now we're totally busting on him, we're making fun of him. But I very much feel the same way about longevity. I do think there is kind of a luck in a circumstance, a happenstance to longevity, and regardless of whatever it is that you are doing. The fortunates just of every day not getting hit by a bus, right?
But
I'm just saying,
don't be an idiot and walk out in front of them.
I agree, but I'm just saying there is the celebration on longevity has always seemed closer to the celebration of being tall than the other side of it.
I get what you're saying.
That part of it I've never. So it's not that I don't think it's fascinating that someone ruled for 70 years. It's not that I don't find old people in their own way wise and worth listening to and hearing stories and accounts. But the celebration I've never really grasped. I've never understood how people almost view it as an accomplishment, where I feel like there were so many factors outside of her control that made it an accomplishment. I would say that about anybody. I'm not trying to pick on the Queen. I would say that about any male ruler. I would say that about any king, or it doesn't. It's not just a pick on Queen Elizabeth thing. It's just something I've never understood.
No, I'm with you.
It's like when you tell me the baseball records, and you're since 110 years, and I'm just I don't do it. You can lay it on me if you want to. I've never understood that aspect.
There have been 4 players in Major League history to hit 55 home runs and steal 15 bases in the same year. 55 homers, 15 stolen bases. You want to make any guesses?
Yeah.
Well, one of them's Aaron Judge. That's why the story
Who's
just
the
came
other
up. Babe Ruth.
Okay.
Who actually did it. And when I gave this to my son, he's like, Babe Ruth couldn't run. I was like, actually, when he was young, he could. And then the other 2, coincidentally, there's been 4 in history. Babe Ruth was 1921. Aaron Judge is now 2020, so 100 years apart. And the other 2 happened in the same year.
Okay.
Sammy Sosa and Ken Griffey Jr. So anyway, there's that.
No, that's not a bad one.
Similar to when Winston Churchill passed away.
This is a good comparison. He was also responsible for many atrocities of colonialism, complicated legacy. But I think it happens to I think anybody like this, the longer you live, the more complicated it becomes.
That's a fair point. Did you ever see the movie? And was it Dunkirk?
Yes.
Was that the one where they were telling Churchill, like, we need to surrender, and he's like, we're not?
No, I think you're thinking of a different one. Dunkirk is when they're trying to get him off the beach.
But isn't that...
If it's part of the movie, I missed it. I do not remember that aspect of the movie.
Maybe Tastes Like Good Can Tell Us. I watched this movie recently, and they're like, we're going to lose. We need to surrender. And he's like, we're not surrendering. Okay. And they're like, these troops are going to get white. He's like, those are, but we're not surrendering to we won't. And because I think that was the whole, I think it was Dunkirk, because I think that they were like, how are we going to get out of it? And he's like, I don't know, but we're not surrendering. And then all the private citizens got everyone out.
Part of it, but the movie itself, I don't believe
it was about the evacuation.
Yes, but I don't know if the Dunkirk movie has a Churchill. But everything you're saying,
I think there was a moment in history where he was like, and they're like, well, what are we going to do? We're going to lose. He's like, I don't know, but we're not surrendering, and it worked out. So it's kind of that dumb. There was a little bit of dumb luck in it that he's like the guy that won't fold his hand and then hit one on the river, and then it's like. But anyway.
That's part of it. Also, while we're talking about this, because 9/11 is coming up this weekend, there's a great documentary. I think we brought this up last year. There's a great documentary about the boats in New York City evacuating people. Mm-hmm. And so if you have to watch anything, because obviously you're going to be bombarded this weekend with, clips and memorials and all this stuff. I highly recommend, if you're going to watch anything to remember 9/11, it's like 15 minutes. Tom Hanks narrates it. And it's about like the greatest evacuation in American history by sea. And it was actually 9/11. Most people do not know that.
I did not know that.
Yes. So if
there's
you get a chance,
story,
that's the one I would recommend that you.
Back in the Revolutionary, because people don't, you just think of New York and when you look at an overhead view of New York City, of how much water and how many ports there are and the bridges that, and back in the very, very beginning of the Revolutionary War, did I ever tell you this story? Washington was trapped. Okay. And we were done. Yeah. And the fog had set in because of whatever, and they were by water, and the British couldn't see. Mm. So they were like, all right, we'll wait till the morning when the fog lifts. Yeah. And so overnight, they, with private fishing boats and vessels, and this is 1770, the war started 1776 or 7, right around there. So all these, and then like when the sun comes up, the fog lifts, and the British are like, where did they go? Yeah. And it was, they're like, we would have lost the war just like that, but they got them out, and then all of a sudden now they're on the other side of the river. Now they can't get them, and so
there's a lot of like little American history pieces like through the 1800s that one thing this way or that way, and the whole thing is completely different. It's pretty wild. Yep. We used to actually, so the cousin that I was describing to you that's tall, that has achieved tallness.
Is he smarter than you? Is that why you're jealous?
He's going to be a neuroscientist. He's way smarter. So
hold on. So let me ask it. So, neuroscience. So is he a surgeon?
He's going to be. I don't know if he's going to be. He wanted to be a neuroscientist. He's doing great things. He's going through all his residencies and everything.
So if I'm laying on the table and the doctor comes in, the first thing I should say is, "Can I get a taller one?"
Yes, he would tell you to say that. Yes. But one of the things, he crewed at Bucknell. So if anyone doesn't know, crewed, they're rowing in the boats. So one of the jokes that I used to say, I'd always joke that he's my second favorite rower, and who's your first? And I would always say George Washington. So that was
he didn't row.
But
he stood in the front.
It's the joke. He was the coaxswain.
The coxswain.
Someone who crewed.
Tailbone. I thought it was the coxswain.
Maybe that's what it was.
Your coccyx is your tailbone.
Something like that. Yeah, so, George Washington, my favorite rower.
Did you ever? And I never know if they're serious or not. Did you ever meet short chicks that are really bothered by their short, and you make jokes of their height and they get bothered?
Isn't that anybody? I feel like that's anybody. I feel like short people don't like to be made fun of, and then tall people don't like to be asked about being tall.
I get it for a guy differently. Like, do you think guys ever look at chicks and like, oh, she's hot, but she's short?
Yeah, I think there's people that prefer like Like obviously like
I
a leg,
don't.
like a leg guy, like someone who likes long legs. Like no, like I think that's a thing. You don't think so?
No, I think
that's a thing.
I think it's much more.
I think it's easier to be shorter as a girl than it is to be shorter as a guy.
I agree with that.
So
I
that
think
part
it's
we
more.
agree.
I think there would be more guys who are like, I will not date a girl taller than me, than say I won't date if if she's 5'3", she's 5'2", she's 5'1", she's 5 foot. Like that's too short. I think there's too tall way quicker than too short.
Really, for guys, there's too tall before there's too short. I've never heard a guy.
You never heard a guy say I wouldn't date a girl taller than me?
No.
Have you ever heard a chick say I wouldn't date a guy shorter than me?
Yes, absolutely.
Same thing. Well, okay.
That's not the same thing.
It's not the same thing. You're right. You're right. That's not right. After I said it, I knew it was wrong.
Would you date a girl taller than you? I mean, when I was in high school, I dated girls taller. Like I dated a volleyball player. Like I've dated people taller than me.
I never have, so I don't know.
Ever.
Never.
Really?
Never.
Because you didn't want to, or because you think it just didn't happen?
I mean, there are. I mean, I'm 5'11", so to find like girls that are 6 foot, I don't.
I bet you on one hand. I bet you I would fill up a hand of girls I dated that were either the same height as me or taller than me. Some of that
Yeah,
is
but
just
you've dated like 700 girls.
not 700. I think some of that though is also just like the athletic realm. Like I played and then I coached and then I think I just never got out of like the athletic realm.
You're kind of the Blossberg version of Warren Beatty.
I don't know about that, but
Do you know who Warren Beatty is?
yes,
Oh, okay.
which is why I'm avoiding the conversation.
I was going to say this. I picked an old guy. That was the first one that came to my mind.
No. Real quick, because you'll appreciate it. I want to say all short guys take it personally. Speaking from experience, it was very difficult for me to date girls shorter than me. So that might be the answer to your question. If you're a short guy, does it change your opinion on dating a taller girl or a shorter girl?
Or are we just talking about supply and demand now?
Let me ask you this. What do you think is short? Because here's what's funny. Growing up, I was always short, but the more I'm in like the adult world, I realize that I am very average, if not slightly above.
You're average.
Right. So it's funny.
Are you talking about from a guy short or from a girl short?
From like a guy's height. Like I think to some people, being a 5'10" guy is short.
Oh, no.
But then when you go out into
you lived in the basketball world. In the basketball world it is, but in the normal world it's not. It's like 5'7"
is short.
And once you get below that.
How short does a guy have to be before you go like, hey, that guy is really short? 5'6"?
No.
5'5"?
Probably like 5'3", 5'4".
Really? I think 5'6". I think once it's 5.5, if you're below 5.5 feet, I'm not.
We'd have to
walking,
see, but I get what you're saying.
But like if I see someone below 5.5, I'm kind of like, wow, they're short. Like I don't say it, but that's what runs through my head. So
like if you see a girl that's like 5 foot, 5'1", that's like you're like, wow, she's too short.
No, I don't think it's wow, it's too short. I mean, when
do you think any guy says that?
It's a good question. It's a really good question. This is one thing I will say to you. Of all the like things that I would see a girl and would think, height was never a thing. I never looked at a girl's height as like an attractiveness. Like, ooh, they're shorter. Ooh, they're taller. Like, I really never cared how tall the person was. Which is weird because I definitely have like different things. But
everybody has different things. And that's why, because I've always had, when you make fun of someone because I like the high shelf and like, do you want me to get that for you? Can you? And, right. And when the girls are like, they'll make fun of me because I'm short or whatever. My honest response is no one cares.
How tall are you? I'm
probably like 5'11". I think at my peak, now that I'm 50, I might be shrinking. Sure. I was like 5'11". My driver's license said 6 foot for a long time.
Girls will tell you there's no such thing as 5'11". You're either 6 foot or you're 5'10". 5'11" is what you say.
That's because girls aren't good at math. 5'11", and they don't realize that a foot is 12 inches, and between 10 and 12, there's
5'11" is what you say when you're 5'9" if you ask a girl.
Oh, no, that's not true.
I'm just telling you what girls will tell you. I'm telling you what
Well, I'm
telling
fair.
you what the
I
dating
take that
pool
back.
would say today.
That's fair, because whenever I go to get my driver's license, they're like, "How tall are you?" I am 6 foot. Because if you're 5'11", you're basically 6 foot,
or you're 5'10". That's the running joke, because there is no 5'11".
That's the more I think about that statement,
Yeah.
the more in this aspect, this could be one of the places in life women are correct.
That there's no 5'11".
But I just went to the doctor yesterday. I should have asked. I should have asked what it said. But I tried to do. They put the, you stand in, they slide the thingy down.
Yeah.
I tried to move it up with my tippy toes,
Right.
and just to be funny, and it locks. So I tried to, it wouldn't move. I was afraid I broke it.
As you were talking, I did think of this. I'm trying to think of the shortest person I ever dated. I will say, do you think there are people, I have people in my life that it really matters that their significant other is athletic? There is this idea or this premise of I want to make sure that my kid is an athlete and they can play things. And so, do you think because of that, those people would never date somebody shorter than X?
Oh no, because you could be a gymnast and be athletic as hell and be 4'10".
I agree with you, but do you think that? I don't think that's how people think.
See, I think too. This is here. We've gone weird science here. Did you ever see Weird Science?
I did.
Okay.
I saw it once with one of my uncles when I was really young.
Just chat. So anyway, there's the ideal. If you could create. It was Kelly LeBrock was the actress' name. You create the person, but then in real life, you meet who you meet, you connect with who you connect with.
Right.
I can't believe anyone ever found someone intriguing and attractive, but I really wish you were better at math. So I think it's
so you're
more,
inversing it is what you're saying.
I think we'd all. Sure, when I was a kid, would I have wanted, because I love sports, I was a good athlete, would I have wanted, my wife to be a good athlete, and then we could, for breeding purposes, and you're like, well, yeah, but it doesn't, you'd rather marry someone you get along with than someone who's a good athlete that you don't get along with. And I know in a perfect world, you'd want to find a good athlete you do get along with, but relationships aren't that easy, as you know, because you've had 700 relationships.
No, I understand what you're saying. Have you ever dated somebody that just, where you were just I don't know what I'm going to talk about with this person?
Yes.
Okay. That to me is way worse than dating somebody that's a little shorter or a little taller or a little whatever. To me, that is the most devastating thing.
Well, I remember my parents asked me once when one ended.
Well, if you're in the car, and you're I don't know what to say to this person, that's the end as far as I'm concerned.
I'm trying to decide. I tried to decide if I wanted a soda this early, but I didn't. But I didn't. No, my parents asked me once, and I was like, we don't have anything to talk about.
Oh, why you broke up?
Why we broke up? Why aren't you guys together anymore? I was like, there's nothing to talk about. And they're like, well, but you could. And I'm like, no, I'm not coaching someone through conversations. This is you have things to talk about or you don't.
Wait, why would I love that you would have to coach them? It couldn't be that you were boring or that you didn't have the same things. It's that they needed
all right,
to be
honestly, let's just all humility aside. Do you think I'm boring and do you think I don't have things to say?
Who, you?
Yes.
Oh no.
Okay, this was the issue. This was the issue.
You can fill a void. What about this? Because I've made this argument before too. I have dated people before that were too nice.
Oh, absolutely.
Have you ever broken up with somebody that was too nice?
Because you're too nice. Well, you don't say it that way.
Because I have dated people in my past where I knew a couple of
No
weeks,
one ever broke up with you because you were too nice.
Probably not. Because a couple of weeks or a couple of months in, there was a sentiment of I'm going to railroad this person. They're never going to be able to tell me to not do something. I'm always going to be the jerk who does whatever I want to do. I'm going to go to this party or I'm going to go see this person. And I just realized I'm going to just walk over this person and it's never going to work. Have you ever been in that situation?
I don't know if it was from that aspect.
Okay.
It was just, there has to be pushback. There has to be opinions. There
Yes.
has to be like, you know, like with the Queen, if everything in life isn't sunshine and rainbows, and you don't want the person, you know, everything in life is also about balance.
Sure.
You don't want the person who everything's negative and the sky is always falling and that's
Right.
miserable, but everything's great and everything's
Okay.
wonderful and everything's
So I have always defended girls on this. I think there are lots of guys who recognize like they're too nice for me, or like I think.
Oh, you're doing them a favor?
No, the opposite. I think girls get a bad rap because people are always like, I'm such a nice guy, but the girls don't want a nice guy. But here I am, and I've had friends say the same thing. Like, I can't date too nice of a girl. I know it won't work. Like, I need somebody that has a little umph and a little stubbornness and willing and has like opinions. You know, like I need somebody that's willing to put their foot in the ground. But on the flip side, girls kind of get trashed for that because they won't date the nice guy. And I just think it's a little bit of a double standard that I've always thought girls had to fight against. This idea that if a girl won't date a nice guy, it can't possibly be because they would walk all over that nice guy. Like they need somebody that has a.
That's not why they don't.
You
date
don't think
nice
so?
Guys? No, I don't think that's why.
See,
I think,
you're kind of helping prove my point that there is a little bit of a double standard.
The aspect of the not dating nice guy, this is where I think it comes to, is.
By the way, you completely dismissing that point completely proved my point.
Wait, no, I think it's totally. Well, first of all, let me backtrack. I'm not sure that. Okay. What you said you dated, you broke up with someone that was too nice because they were going to let you do whatever you want to do.
I mean, I was just they were never going to push back.
Okay. And that is, if you're doing it because you thought you were going to take advantage of it, you were going to run roughshod over the relationship, then you are the exception, because that's what most guys are looking for. I want to be able to do this when I want. I want to be able to do this when I want. I want to be able to do this when I want. And I want to come home and have dinner on the table. My issue with it was it's boring. I need someone when I say, you know, to come in and say, oh, isn't it sad that the Queen died? And someone to stand up and say, well, the Queen wasn't always lovely. And I need pushback or it just gets boring. Okay. So I think there's a different entity. That's why I don't think girls like the nice guys, because I think, and this is my personal, I haven't Googled this or this is my, because they feel like the nice guy would like anyone. And the reason that the reason that the jerk in high school, the good looking jerk always has girlfriends is because they have won. He's a jerk to you and you and you and everybody else, but he treats me well. Yeah. I have cracked the code.
But you're applying like the high school ethics to the conversation.
Well, I think it happens everywhere.
I know, but I feel like once you're in your 20s and 30s, or if you're single in your 40s and 50s, I think once you've like gotten out of the
was that a shot?
It wasn't. That was a compliment. I think once you're out of the high school college ethos, right? Like we have left that. And once people are starting to like really figure out truly like what do I actually want? Because that's not what you're thinking about in high school. Like nobody in high school is actually thinking like, what do I really want?
Fair.
Fair.
No, I think they're thinking about what they really want, but it's very simplistic.
Well, there's no long distance.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's very fair. Once you're out of that, I think for guys, it shifts without a doubt. And I think for girls, it shifts. The difference though, is I feel like the stigma sticks with the girls. So like girls are held to these things like, oh, girls never date the nice guy. And it's like, well, no, like girls, like everyone matures and adapts. Whereas all these stigmas about guys kind of dissipate as they go into their 20s and 30s, but it sticks to the girls.
Stigmas stick with girls way more than they stick with the guy. It's in lots of aspects.
You're a walking, breathing proof of that.
Wait, what? I don't know what that means either. I don't think that's.
I didn't even say that negatively.
I think you did. All these things you keep insulting me, and you're like, that wasn't an insult.
That wasn't insulting.
Whatever. No, but the stigma world is very female.
50's like the new 40.
Is it?
You don't think so?
When you're 50, you
the
tell me
Queen
that.
just lived to 96.
Yes.
You don't think 50 is the new 40?
No, I don't.
Really?
When you hit 50, you let me know how it's going.
Do you feel like?
Although I was just told out in the conference room earlier today that my palate, I have the palate of a child, and it is never, because they're asking me about like the foods I like. They're like, you eat like kids' foods. You've never grown up.
What? Because we have to go to that meeting.
Oh,
What
we do.
you,
Oh, we do.
We do. Do you think? I'm trying to put this in a question in a form in which you can answer it in under 3 minutes.
No. How'd I do?
Do you think, what is the biggest difference between possibly dating when you're 50 versus possibly dating when you're like 30? So I don't want to.
Baggage.
Is that what
There's
it is?
my answer.
See, that's why I picked the number 30 though, because 30, like,
You can have baggage at 30. Absolutely.
you could have been out of a relationship. Like, there's baggage.
Oh, are you
when
talking
you're
about the
30.
emotional
No,
aspect?
I'm just saying, like, what? When you're 50, I don't think you're just in the dating pool. I think you're actually making a choice to join the dating pool. Is that a fair way to put it?
Sure.
Whereas if you're single and 30, you're in it whether you want to be or not.
I think the biggest difference with relationships, dating or relationship, or most things of life, as you get older, you become less idealistic and more realistic. And like, this is the way the world is supposed to be. And then this is the way the world really is. Okay. And I think if you're dating at 25 and you ask someone about their past relationships and they tell you the horror stories about infidelity and blah, 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 at 25, you're like aghast and how in the world. But when you're 50 and you ask people about past relationships, they've been through the journey and you're a little more appreciative, sympathetic.
Yes. But I would still argue at 25 and 30, you almost don't have a choice. Like, you are kind of in the dating pool regardless of if you actually want to.
Oh, okay. Yes, that's fair.
At 50, I feel like there's almost like
you can withdraw.
Decision.
Yeah, believe me.
So it's almost like you. So this is what I'm asking you a little bit of a personal question. Is like, what is the?
Are you about to ask me out?
No, I'm saying for you, what has been what has been the biggest challenge or decision on whether or not to be in that realm?
I'll tell you this, and I don't know if this
is that a fair question.
Yeah,
I think it is. As politely.
I think it is, and I'll say this. I've told this to dozens of people. I probably told it to you. Okay. One of the most shocking things that I've realized in adult life, and I split up with my ex in my early to mid 40s, and one of the most eye-opening things to me is when you end up single at this stage of life, unless there was something tragic and someone passed away, it was because you were out of a bad relationship. Now, maybe you were the one that wanted out. Maybe you didn't think the relationship was bad and the other person, whatever the case may be, but it's basically a relationship that didn't make it.
Right.
And then how quickly people dive back into new relationships when you just struggled to get out of a bad one. So, it's the aspect of like, if someone's in a bad, motorcycle accident and it takes them a long time to recover. And then the first thing they do is hop back on a motorcycle. Yeah. And you're like, wouldn't you be a little more cautious? So I've equated when you're an adult, you're supposed to have a job because you have to support and you have to, whatever. Mm-hmm. So you lose your job, you get a new job. Okay. But when you're an adult, society sees you're supposed to have a relationship. Okay. So you lose your relationship, you're supposed to get a new relationship. Yes. And it is the thing about relationships, it takes time. Okay. And it takes time and effort. And depending on the things that if you have enough other things in the world that you want to do, right? If I'm going to put time into a relationship, then what am I not going to do? Yes. Am I not going to do this job? Am I not going to do this job? Am I going to take away from time with my kids? Yeah. Am I going to take away from time with my hobbies? And those are the balances.
It's so funny because when I describe that, I always refer to myself as selfish, but you just call it time, which is a very nicer way of putting it.
Well, it's realistic because the other aspect of when you get into in older, unless,
we have to go, so keep that in mind.
All right. Well, they don't listen to us anyway. Not that our audience does, but with the baggage, because people have kids or have other aspects. When you get into when you start dating at 25, if you break up, nobody else cares. maybe their parents do because their parents are like, why did you break up? But when you get into a relationship with someone, now you connect, you create relationships with their kids and things like that. So now the breakup becomes harder on everyone, because it's just like when you're in a marriage and a bad marriage and people stay together for the kids.
Yeah.
When you get in a new relationship,
yeah,
and now that person already has kids, either if those kids don't like you, then it's a bad situation for the kids. But if the kids do like you and you bond with them and then you break up again, now you've put in the you didn't just break up with her, you broke up with the kids too.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
that's why there should be a carefulness to it.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
It's not impossible, but
No.
you shouldn't be reckless about it because the kids ride this roller coaster
but it's
that
not
they have
as
no control
simple,
over.
But what you're implying is dipping your toe back in the water when you're 25, 30, even maybe 35. It's easier to just grab a towel, wipe it off, and go about your life. And what you're saying is once you're 50, it's much harder to decide to dip your toe in, because it's like there might not be a towel. There might
There's a lot more.
Else in
there's
the
a lot
water,
more
like,
things to analyze.
Yeah,
when you get in, it's
I
like
get
going
what you're
into a
saying.
marriage when you bring assets with you, as opposed to going into a marriage when you're both young and broke and you don't have, like, who cares? Do you need agreements? Do you need attorneys?
I get it.
But
I'm fascinated by when that switches over, because I think when you're 30, I think regardless of that, it's just accepted you're in the dating pool. Like, it's just like you're in it. So when is it 31? Is it 39? Is it 42? Is it like, at what point do people just no longer assume just because you're single, it means you're in the dating pool?
Oh, I think everyone assumes if you're single, you're always in the dating pool.
Nah, see, I disagree.
I think society does.
You think so? I disagree. You think everyone looks at you and thinks you're in the dating pool?
I have lots of friends that ask me why I'm not.
No,
why aren't you dating?
So they assume the opposite. But they assume that you are not in the dating.
But they think I should be.
Correct, but they assume you're not, and that's the point I'm making. Is like, at what?
Well,
point,
they know I'm not because they know.
I know.
Me,
so the point I'm making is, at what age do you cross over? Like, at what point do people just not assume you are dating, or that you are not actively in the dating pool?
Well, I think unless they know better, I think everyone assumes.
I disagree, because your friends just proved the point.
But my friends know better because they know me.
Okay. Interesting.
I think if you just walk down the street and you see someone and they're 47 years old and they're single, you assume they're open to dating.
Not as much as I assume the 27-year-old is.
Okay. See, I disagree. But maybe it's because I've been through 47, because I'm 50 and you have to get there. And it's just not, it just seems like life is very normal. It doesn't seem all that different. So I don't know. It is, yeah. There you go. How did we get on that?
We started with you talking about short people.
Well, you started talking about tall people and how they haven't done anything special to be tall. And then that's how it went.
Yes, tall people who act like their tallness is an achievement blows my mind.
Yeah, my topic was a little more cerebral than that.
If you
basically said tall people, you're not that special.
If you brag about being tall,
nobody brags about being tall.
It's a weird brag.
Nobody brags about being tall.
All I'm saying, as an average sized person, it's a weird brag to brag about being tall, because like it's kind of it's a lottery, like it's genetics. Like, I don't know, like you didn't. I just don't know what you did to do it, is what I'm saying.
I get you. I don't think I've never heard anyone brag about it.
I'm not jealous of tall people, but when a tall person brags about being tall,
they don't. Have you ever had anyone brag? It doesn't happen. Doesn't happen. It's never happened.
Ever.
Tall people don't brag about being tall.
We got to get you around tall people. It's like their own. It's like their own little club up there.
Is there a family event I'm going to be invited to so I can sit next to this tall person?
I mean, you can see it. This is the other thing with tall people. It's automatically assumed they're the most athletic, and that makes no sense to me.
Oh, I disagree with that.
I think most people assume the tallest person in the room is the most athletic.
I'll give you an assumption.
You disagree with that statement?
Yes, I disagree.
Really?
Yes.
You think most people, when they walk in a bar and there's a dude that's like 6'5", 220, you don't think most of the people in the room are assuming
what if he's 6'5", 170?
Still, he's 6'5", and he's right there.
He's gangly. They think he's going to trip and fall.
By the way, my cousin's probably like 160. So this is
6'7", 160. You can't be 6'7", 160.
I'm picking on him now, but he is.
Here's one thing that people are wrong at.
Yes.
When you go to youth sports, they think the smallest kid is the fastest kid.
Yes.
And that is insanity.
This is the same thing. Okay,
but I'll give it. I'll explain to this, and I've explained this ever. When you watch on TV, if there's a 5'7" receiver or if there's a 5'11" point guard, the only reason they made it to TV is because they're lightning quick.
Sure.
But there are all kinds of normal schleps who are short and slow.
I agree. Hot take. I think if you're 25 and married, you're still kind of in the game.
That is awesome. He's my favorite.
Oh my god. It's pretty good.
That is awesome.
Did you see? I don't know if you saw this one at the beginning. My favorite meme.
Wait, hold on. Before we move on. How old's your girlfriend?
26, 25.
Okay, I just wanted to.
What? She's not married.
That's true. That's true. Well, you know what that means?
What are you trying to prove?
You know what that means?
What?
It doesn't matter if she's married or not. She's 25.
Why do you think I've waited?
She's in the dating pool.
It would have been stupid to marry her at 23. She would have been in the dating pool regardless.
Does it stop at 26?
Listen, you're laughing. That was my question to you, and you didn't want to answer it. You kept shying away from it.
That's
favorite
fun.
Memes: Betty White 99, Queen of England 96, USA wins again. No, you didn't enjoy that. That one's not for you.
No, that is really good. Brett sent me the one about when Reggie Jackson tried to assassinate her in the Naked Gun.
Oh, yeah. I got that. That came up on my Facebook feed a couple of times, I think. That one. All right. Anything else before we leave?
Yeah, I do have a couple things actually before we leave. Some really good high school football tonight. Selinsgrove is at Jersey Shore, which Selinsgrove is good. Jersey Shore might be they might be state championship caliber. So that's one of the great ones. I think Massey is going to go to that one. Okay. Loyal Sock is at Southern, which is I can't believe Southern. I don't know if they're as good as they've been in the past. They're obviously still good. Loyal Sock's pretty good. I
feel very athlete for athlete. Probably, I would argue it's very close. The issue's just in the interior. Then it gets a little wonky. But if you want to talk about just lining up 7-on-7,
Loyal Sock's got some skill. On the college world, it's a really Penn State is at noon against Ohio. Notre Dame is late. I think they're 7 against Marshall. In between, Pitt. That's why I wore it. My daughter is going to Pitt. She doesn't care about the games, but she goes there. Yeah. They are ranked. They play Tennessee, who's ranked at 3:30. This is a very bad college football week. Yeah. Pitt, Tennessee is one of the biggest games of the week. But if Pitt wins, their conference schedule is soft. Yeah. So they could make a long, long run. And when Penn State and Notre Dame and Pitt I always said when Penn State and Notre Dame are good, Saturdays are more fun. Sure. If you can throw Pitt into the mix as a ranked team.
Sure.
So that is at 3:30.
We'll find out.
I also wanted to say.
Well, wait, are you moving from football?
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Daneker from Williamsport High School.
Oh, it's playing against Penn State.
Is going to be playing at Penn State. He starts on the line. I don't know the exact number, but Ohio ran it down someone's throat last week. So there you go. If you want to see a Williamsport alum.
I did. I knew that. I was talking about that with someone this morning. I forgot. Very good point. In Major League Baseball, under cover of darkness, because this is the first full football weekend. But the Yankees lead is down to 4.5 against the not the Jays, the Rays. Yeah. Sorry, wrong team. And the Rays are in New York for 3. And also the Guardians and Minnesota are a game and a half apart, and they play a 3-game series. So I know football takes
a little bit when you said Guardians.
I did. I wish I would have just said Cleveland. But there's some very big baseball series as we go on, and the Yankees, it's possible, could have one of the biggest collapses in baseball. Now they'll still make the playoffs because they'll expand a wild card and all that stuff. But tomorrow night is fight night, and Nate Diaz is who is, if you're a fight fan, he is legendary. And he is going tomorrow night. And then, of course, the Cowboys with their begin their Super Bowl run on Sunday as they beat Tom Brady.
You skipped over the Braves.
The Braves are actually in Seattle, which is tough. But it's not. Seattle's been hot. The Braves are hot.
They've essentially all but caught the Mets.
Yes. I think it's a half game, a game.
And then I might have this wrong. I think the Mets and Braves are the last series of the season.
They might be.
Or the second to the last series of the season. So that will have playoff implications for sure.
The Braves have done very well with starting out slowly and then having people sleep on them. And then all of a sudden they become like the best team in baseball for the last half, 2/3 of the season. But so there is big baseball going on. It's a great sports weekend, and it's still warm enough to, you can get to high school football games and you can wear, maybe you have to wear a long sleeve t-shirt tonight instead of short sleeves, but it's still nice.
With the, I don't know if you knew this or not, the NBA moved their tip-off up to help with game time off between games.
Okay.
Because they used to start Halloween or after.
I was going to say they started way late October.
I think they're starting now like mid-October.
Okay.
I haven't looked at the exact date. So there is a chance that you could have NCAA, NFL, MLB championships, NBA tip-offs all running for like a week or two at the same time.
I'll tell you what, and we'll remind this as it comes because you're a bigger NBA guy than I am, but we're both basketball guys. I got tickets for my son back when he was in middle school. Houston, when this was the Harden Houston, when they were in Philly, and they only come to Philly once a year. At least they did. I don't know if they've adjusted the schedule, but it was like the 4th game of the season. So it was October 31st, November 4th, something like that.
Sure.
And because the NBA hasn't really, it hasn't got underway yet, really. It is, but it hasn't. We got super good seats for super cheap. So if you're a kid always wanted to go to an NBA, don't wait till March because that's when the tickets will be high.
Sure.
Like look October, November, and you can get some really good deals. And Steph Curry may show up here. Sure. Now that would probably be expensive, but if you want to see like Dallas or Phoenix or somebody who's good, Denver, Milwaukee, somebody with a marquee name in Philadelphia, check the schedule early. You can get really good deals.
Yeah.
That's my shopping tip of the day.
There you go. Thank you guys for watching the Midday Show. Be sure to go to NorthcentralPa.com for all of your local news.
Enjoy the weekend.
I'm Jeff Everett. He's Mark Messina, and we will see you next week.